you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Those words are attributed to Carl Jung. And this video is going to be about integration. Integration is integrating the parts of you in your unconscious mind which affect the way you behave, your consciousness. So, when we talk about shadow work, it is quite involved, and I think it probably puts a lot of people who are not psychological nerds off. But yet, shadow work is important to a certain extent. But the way I look at it is that if you're going to do shadow work, it's going to reveal itself in the time that you're ready for it to reveal itself. And also if you're aware. So it comes down to self-awareness again. Self-awareness is looking at Johari's window, at that last quadrant, the last pane of the window, which is unconscious. It will be on the right-hand side, the right bottom, unconscious. If you look at my first video, which is on self-awareness. So how do you find out what is in your unconscious mind so that you can integrate it? And why is integration important? Well, for those of us who don't want to live with all kinds of unwelcome emotions, such as guilt, shame, jealousy, envy, etc., and those of us who know that we can do something about it. Some people hide their emotions because they don't want to be aware of them. And you have to want to be aware of it and have a look at it and have a look at uncomfortable emotions like, if you, let's say I'm feeling jealous of someone, okay. I can either get angry and deny that I'm feeling jealous of them and go and spread a whole lot of rumors about that person to invalidate them, or I can look at my own reaction and my own response and examine it, and I can think, now, why am I jealous of that person? What has that person got that I'm jealous of? How can I improve my own life? Because that's when you're taking the power back, when you're actually improving something within you and you're not putting it all on the other person or increasing your jealousy and your envy, which in fact can lead to evil consequences if you don't keep them in check. Jealousy has been known to cause murders and that type of thing at the extreme. So that's also why it's important to do integration work, because you might have heard the word integrity being thrown around, but actually integrity is being as much of yourself as possible, which is not very easy if you have been a victim of bullying, trauma. You've been in that situation where you've been invalidated and you've been made to feel unsure of yourself, because what happens in a case like that is you have what psychologists call an introject in your subconscious, which I wish I'd known this 4 years ago, because I always had my mother's voice in my head shouting at me, telling me, oh, you're not good enough. You can only reach a certain level and no more. You can't be better than me. Uh, and I had a number of people like that in my life who themselves were jealous and they put that onto me, or or maybe whatever their issues were. I don't want to delve into their issues because that's their problem. So, but when you have that introject, also in emotional psychological abuse, you tend to have the introject of the abuser inside your mind, and it really uh, messes up with your consciousness and who you are and how you feel. So this is why emotions need to be looked at. It's very important to have a look at your emotions and be honest about them. Now, let's say, for example, this might even have been the case, that I was jealous of my sister because she's doing very well. She's wealthy. She's got a nice house. Meanwhile, at the moment, after I knew I was in a relationship and I wanted to sort it out, but I was never blaming my husband for the abuse that was happening, and I kept on blaming myself, and I, I put a lot onto myself. So when I saw someone who was self-sufficient, making her own money, not needing a man, obviously there was something that I had to look at there. Why? Why was I feeling so, uh, like I was nothing and I was not enough? And that was also the interjects of the other people that had said that to me in my life, that were shouting back at me when I tried to do anything worthwhile. I had this serious imposter syndrome. Um, so now I feel that I've actually overcome a lot in that way because, at the moment I'm not very well off financially. In fact, I'm at a stage where, I'm rebuilding my life. But yet I'm not jealous of my sister anymore. And why is that? I'm probably worse off than I was a couple of years ago in that department, but I'm not jealous anymore. It's because I've worked through it. And that is integration. And it's a very personal example of integration, because you can feel you can get rid of a whole lot of things which have been holding you back if you can pinpoint them and actually look into yourself and know why it's like that and actually get rid of that, because that's all your shadow side. And some people let their shadow side take over. If there's a psychopath, they're actually living in their shadow side, but they are very unself-aware, so they won't really be bothered about that. But if you want to be one of the good people in the world, which I suppose this weekend been I've been researching the evil people in the world, which I've been looking at the Epstein case in more detail. Normally I would avoid things like that, but I'm interested to know where those people are coming from. Why do they do what they do? And it's very interesting. I've also been to um, the Holocaust and Genocide Museum to know how people were capable of that. How was everyone following Hitler, and how it was everyone just ignoring what has been done to the Jews. Also in Rwanda, that's a country in Africa where there was serious genocide at about the time that the the new government in South Africa came into power, and there were huge celebrations over that. So um, how do people just follow that? It's because they don't want to, they want to rather ignore those uncomfortable feelings. They might feel uncomfortable about what is being done and even feel that it's wrong, but they can't get themselves to act. They can't get themselves to act against it or stand against it. And it requires strength to actually look at your shadow side and to actually look at your feelings that may be elicited. Because I used to sometimes feel, oh, I used to be told I mustn't judge people and I mustn't judge situations. And I felt that I wasn't one to talk, when you're talking about certain things that people were doing. I got this thrown in my face. Oh, what about you when you did this and when you did that? That's that's not what you should think about when you are trying to better yourself. Don't sit and look on your past guilt, because guilt is a way which you really can get hold. You can get held back in life through guilt that often other people have piled on you for things which may be happening in the world, which it could be much worse than what you experienced or what you're guilty of. And if you're guilty of something, um, I was brought up a Catholic, and I don't subscribe to telling your sins to a priest or anything, because really I think you can pray directly to God if you believe in God or whatever it is for you, whether it's the universe, whether it's any way that you get rid of your guilt, or your shame or anything. Just do it. It's you don't have to sit with it. You need to acknowledge it. Okay, I did a wrong thing and I'm not going to do it anymore. If you're a person who wants to get rid of that, um, some people they prefer to be evil, but we really are battling for good in the world nowadays. So integration and integrity is actually a very important part of individuation and maybe becoming that better person. Because, as I say, when I was talking about my timeline, I, I wasn't always on the most exemplary behavior, and sometimes that same sort of behavior that maybe I exhibited as a teenager, and I see it in other people. When I was unhealed, I used to condemn them because a part of me in, let's say it's in my introject, my mother, was that condemning voice was coming out in the back of me. But now I understand. I mean, I'm talking about my shadow side when I say the back of me. Okay. Yeah. But now I do understand people like that, and I I think if you have looked into your shadow and solved a lot of things which you have really battled with throughout your life, you feel a certain peace that you've overcome that you haven't had to confess to any other human being, but it's between you and God that you have that peace and you're becoming a better person. And I used to also hear this, when I was into personal development. I was actually, as I say, I was a lifeline counselor, and I was into personal development from quite a young age. I was sort of mid-20s when I started studying personal development. And I used to hear it from so-called Christian people. Oh no, it's evil. You mustn't look into personal development. You must only look to God. But personal development, I have found, is actually, it's part of the process of becoming a better person. And it's a lifelong process. You can never be you can never be perfect, and you can never be God, but as long as you're on that track. Now, this is turning more into a spiritual talk, and I didn't really intend for it to be. I'm just talking from uh, what I've discovered is that personal development, say the study of EQ, when I studied EQ and I wrote up on EQ, I found that my spiritual development improved. My whole concept of God and of good and evil, that started taking shape more than the people who guilted me and shamed me and everything, because often they were putting their own guilt and shame onto me. And that's what you do when you're an unhealed person. You 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 dump all your load into other people, and that's what narcissistic people do. People who uh, they've got to have somewhere to deposit all their toxic waste. That's why we call them toxic people. Um, so if you don't want to become like that, it's important to actually have a greater look at your emotions and think. particularly the complicated ones like jealousy, fear, shame, guilt. Um, take a good look at that. Of course, it's not easy. It's not always easy to take a good look at yourself and actually pinpoint everything, but it's actually easier than carrying around that baggage forever, that you can't bear to be alone, that you have nightmares, that you have flashbacks, that you have trauma all your life. God didn't intend for you to be like that. God, whoever you claim the higher power to be. So that's how this part on integration is important in individuation, as I talked about it, and having your own agency and being able to combat what other people try to put on you. Yeah, so I think that, well, I know that I used to think that I had certain beliefs, but those beliefs that I thought were mine were actually not mine. They were those of the introjects, the people that had put them upon me, like my mother. I was closed to divorce because my mother told me it was a horrible thing, it's an evil thing. The Catholic Church condemns it, but yet I put up with the marriage for much, much longer than I should have. And that's because of those beliefs which weren't even mine. They were put onto me, for example. And so you've got to be prepared to change beliefs, and often that's uncomfortable because it causes a lot of cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is where something that you believed has been shown not to be true. So some people can't stand that, so they will try and justify all the reasons why it's true, but instead of actually change their mindset and change their so-called beliefs, which were not their beliefs at all, because they were not given the chance to develop their own beliefs. So I've discovered a lot through being on the edge of life, being sort of down. I've got less money than I ever had before. I'm on my own completely. Well, I have one or two good friends, and I'm very thankful for them. But this has brought so much clarity into my life, and you don't have to reach a stage where you're really having to figure out what's what, or reach the age of 60 before you do that. But sometimes it is a process that actually develops in our life where we can't help, because we can't help to actually ask those tough questions, and come to our own truth, because we realize that everything was put on us and it wasn't necessarily good for us, what society dictated to us. Like when in 1981 was my first year out of school, and it was so limited what you could actually do in that time, what women could do. Oh, women can't do this and women can't do that. I think it changed a bit after that, but that's definitely the environment I was brought up in. And you realize that, for our day and age, it was something which you didn't realize was thrust upon you, because we didn't have so much information out there. We believed what we were told by the authoritative figures of the day. And then I realized that I had so much more potential than I got told that I had. And but then I was, well, this is all about me, but yes, think about yourself. Okay. Are there any areas that you really, is there anything that you may be jealous of another person about? Is there anything that you're really afraid of? Is there anything um, that you feel guilty about? That you feel ashamed of? I'm sure we have all those things because life is not perfect and these things happen in life. So when you figure out what it is for you, just take a deeper dive into that and forgive yourself. And if you need to make things right with other people or make situations right, then do it to the best of your ability and move forward because it really keeps you stuck to be having shame, guilt, um, even and the worst thing is denial. This is where people with psychological problems uh, don't move forward because they are stuck in denial. They um, they won't admit that they have a problem. They won't admit that anything was their fault. They put the blame onto everyone else, and by doing that, they do that to make themselves feel better. But really, they are giving away their power, and it takes away power from them because the power is within you to change and be a better person and move forward in life and reach greater heights, whatever those greater heights are. To me, it's uh, there's so much more to success than just what the outside show of the normal things like money and power and position and whatever. Um, I think with a personality type like mine, it matters. Other things matter more. Like the state of your soul, the state of your heart. But it shouldn't only be about the personality type. I think generally people, it's really a thing that people should really care about. So also this weekend there are, uh, well, it was Valentine's Day. Okay, so I think subconsciously I decided to wear red today because of Valentine's Day, but that was yesterday. Okay, so I was thinking very much about love, and that love is actually used as such a weapon these days because it's used to get fast and easy sex. Okay, it's used to con people who are desperate for love and con them into relationships and doing what they don't want to do. And people are really searching for love. But when you find out that the love is within you and you actually need to give it to yourself first before you can have a proper relationship with anybody else, you need to have that relationship with yourself. So um, I don't believe in sort of heavy forced shadow work and that type of thing when you're not ready for it. It's a process, like everything, it's a process. You've got to be patient with it. And when we talk about that unconscious quadrant of Johari's window, um, it reveals itself in the time that it's meant to reveal itself to you. I wonder why it took me so long, but perhaps I had years to learn a few things before I was able to accept the truth of it. And if we look at the characters in the Bible, now because I was going to make the excuse because it's Sunday, but really, I can talk about the Bible any day because that's what I believe in, and this is my video, so it's about me and my integrity. You decide what's your integrity, but I'm thinking about Abraham in the Bible and people like that. How many years it took them, uh, and the story of Joseph and the story of David. How many years it took them to actually come right with God? How many years it actually took them to be people of integrity? That, unfortunately, is not something which happens to many of us right away. And but if we are progressing in that direction, then that's something. Today's world, it's definitely something. If you are willing to be honest, and that's what integration is. It's actually um, integrating the sides of yourself and saying, yes, I'm not perfect. I've done this and I've done that, and I'm not proud of that. But I'm a human being, and that's a part of me which I'm working on, and that's integration. So this is part of the whole process of individuation. And if you can have your own integration, then you can stand up stronger against the world. You can have the courage to stand up against those people who are trying to create more introjects into your head, into your soul, into trying to encroach and put the evil energy into you. Okay, so there's a lot of truth in that if you don't love God and you don't have regard for yourself as well, then you are more open to other things, more open to evil forces just coming in, even though it's subtly, because it normally is subtly that it happens. So you just need to keep carrying on with recognizing where you're falling short, and also recognizing where you are coming right. So this is integration, just my take on that. And I will be back with another video for the individuation course. So far we've looked at self-awareness, we've looked at the timeline, we've looked at aspirations, which involves time management on your timeline going forward, and human nature. I could even say more about that, but yes, human nature. That's nature in. And then last time I looked at discernment, and this time I looked at integration. So that's what I have to say for this evening. And it's been a nice quiet Sunday, and it's been a little bit cooler. So have a lovely week ahead, and I'll chat to you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.